If you ever catch me in some sort of like dopey group therapy, you have permission to kill me.
So we're all here? Who wants to start?
Congratulations on this movie. It's such a touching and important one. And it's unfortunately still all too rare to see two women of color leading a film, especially a film like this that takes place in this sort of military world. What did it mean to you in terms of like representation and being a voice for both Black and female soldiers?
Oh, well, hi, Taylor. It's so good to chat with you. It meant a great deal. And I have to big up Kyle Hausmann-Stokes, our writer and director. He wrote along with AJ Bermudez, who is a woman as well. But, you know, a big part of, I think, what makes My Dead Friend Zoe special is that he wanted to tell his story through women. He wanted women to bring his story to life. And so while I am essentially Kyle in this film, he still opened up, right? He says that he was taught to leave the windows open, and that's what he did. And so we were able to come in, we were able to bring what we bring, and he welcomed our contribution. And there were certain things that were so specific to a friendship between two women of color that we were able to bring in, right? There were things that there were just ways that we would speak to each other, ways that we would relate to each other, that we were able to communicate and bring forth and contribute to the story. And that was phenomenal. So it means a great deal because this story is specific, but it's universal. And he wanted it to be, he said, if I fulfill this mission and tell this story to save lives, I want it to also somehow be everybody's story.
Absolutely. And I absolutely love watching you and Natalie play off of each other. I think it's so fun to see your dynamic. And I'm curious how you sort of went about developing that chemistry because it does feel so lived in and natural.
Oh, thank you so much. That's such a great thing to hear. Honestly, it was organic. I think it's Natalie because we met each other and we loved each other and we were like, okay, let's go. You know, we didn't have to force it. We didn't have to work for it. It was super easy and natural. And you know, the chemistry too, the script was so well written that just bringing it to life, you see this chemistry. You see it even as you're reading it, you know, it jumps off the page to you in a sense. So we just dove in and created a safe space for each other. And, you know, she's utterly brilliant. And so, you know, it was so much fun to be in those moments with her and to play off of her. And we did play. We just jumped together and just dove in. And it was so fun and fulfilling at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I interviewed her, she said she was always sort of trying to break you in your scenes together and make you laugh. I'm curious if there's one moment that stands out as being the most difficult to sort of keep a straight face during.
Oh my goodness. Well, she's so funny. It's hard to remember one moment in particular where she where she made me break. I mean, we had a lot of fun in the Humvee, which is the opening, you know, in the opening teaser of the the film. There were probably a couple of spit takes in that one, in that sequence, and then just in the car driving and dancing and stuff. I'm sure there were a couple of spit takes in that too.
I love a good like car karaoke car dancing scene. I think those are always so fun. Do you have a song that you like love to sing in the car? I have to ask.
Oh my gosh, do I have a song I like to sing in the car? That's a good question. Of course, now I'm like on a game show and everything, my brain just went blank on
Oh, that's
everything.
fair.
You know how that goes. Cause I'm also always listening to like songs with the kids. Most of the time when I'm in the car, I'm with my kids.
Like Pumpkin Wheels on the bus, like really.
Oh yeah,
know,
Baby Shark. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? There's a there's a channel on YouTube called Gracie's Corner, and they have also released a ton of music, and it's just like real good beats to those typical like children's rhymes that you're used to. We listened to those a lot too.
Yeah, you gotta spice it up a little
You
bit. For
do.
sure.
You do.
This movie it's so much fun. There's a lot of like levity to it, but I will say it also has a lot of heavy, pretty emotionally intense moments. So I'm curious if there was a scene or a day on set that you did find sort of the most challenging to get through in that respect.
I usually, you know, when I think about the most challenging moments, I think about the graveyard scene, but I'm actually going to say something different this time, because the cemetery moment was such a release and so cathartic and so necessary, and it felt that way too. But I struggled a lot with the moment in the parking lot after the bar, after the date. I felt like I was in knots that particular night, and I walked away still in knots. You know, it was challenging. I wanted to do the right thing, and I wanted to uplift Kyle. I wanted to uplift all vets. I wanted to uplift even those that have not served, who have dealt with this kind of pain. I wanted so desperately to help and to serve and to do everybody justice, right? And so there were times where it got a bit heavy for me because perhaps I was being too hard on myself. And that night, I remember, was one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think you did a beautiful job in that
Oh,
scene.
thank you.
So
Thank you
it
so
was
much. Praise
wonderful.
God. Thank you.
I feel like in addition to your chemistry with Natalie, I really, really enjoyed the relationship with Merritt and Dale. I feel like that was such a meaningful and like deep sort of connection. So can you talk a little bit about sort of developing that with Ed Harris? Because I feel like the grandpa relationship like hit home for a lot of people, and me especially.
Oh, that's wonderful. I know Kyle would be really happy to hear you say that. You know, Dale is based on his grandpa Orville, almost exactly. And the things that Dale says are almost verbatim. And so, you know, with Ed, it was so profound to be able to work with this legend, essentially, this actor that I've just respected almost all my life. Of course, I felt that same way about Morgan and Gloria Reuben, for that matter, too. But I just felt like I was able to get lost in the depths with him. And he's so open and so exposed and so vulnerable and so, you know, it's like his arms stretch outward wide, and they are warm, and they allow you in, they invite you in. And I found it to be a very cozy place, being in those moments with him. And you know, the big moment where he's sort of, you know, getting at Merritt for messing up the trash system. That moment I'll never forget. I was physically shaking. I could feel it so deep in my chest and in my stomach and in my heart. It hit me so hard. It was just such a joy to be able to, you know, do life with him and tell that story with him. And, you know, I feel the same way about Morgan and Utkarsh and Gloria. And I feel that same way about Natalie too, to be honest with you. Like, it was just such a joy and a blessing. It was a beautiful, challenging blessing.
I have to say, I interviewed him and he said just about the exact same thing about you and your openness and things. So there's like a kindred spirit thing going on there, which is really sweet.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear. Oh, wow.
Yeah, it really, really shines through, I think, as well. And you mentioned the trash scene, which also like really kind of shook me up. And I've watched the movie a couple times now, and that picnic scene makes me cry every single time, even without any real dialogue. I feel like
Yeah.
that just hits me really hard. So I'm curious if you can sort of talk about the way you approached that and what it was like to film that.
Oh my goodness. You mean the music at the park? Music in the
Yeah.
park? Oh man, yeah. I mean, that was one of the that was a touch point for all of us, because it was something that Kyle talked about quite a bit, because this was the reason why he joined, why he wanted to be a soldier, was because of his grandfather. It's very much what you hear Merritt saying, my grandfather seemed 100 feet tall to me. And so, knowing that we were going to sort of culminate our story in that moment was huge. And we all knew that moment was coming, and we knew, or at least we hoped, that it would be super impactful. And it was. And even to hear Kyle say that moment gets to him still to this day. Oh gosh, it was a moment. It was such a moment. And it was so important for Merritt as well, because this is one of those things where it didn't necessarily happen in that way in real life in terms of the resolution between these two characters. Because if you hear Kyle, he'll say, my grandfather and I actually never did quite talk about it. So there's a little bit of the hope of healing in the story too. And so the fact that Merritt has this moment with her grandfather, I just was aware of how deep the moment was, when we were in the midst of it. And I just wanted to give myself over to it because I knew this moment is going to really sing. At least I hope it does.
I think it absolutely does. I feel like you're right. That's kind of the core, like the climax in a way.
In a way.
That.
Yeah.
Which is really beautiful. I believe this is your first time executive producing a feature film, if I did my research correctly.
Yes,
so I'm curious what that experience was like for you.
Oh, thank you for asking about that. Me and Natalie and Ed all served as executive producers, in addition, obviously, to being lead actors in the film. I really, really loved it, I tell you, because I find it fascinating, and I find it inspiring that Kyle was open enough to let other people in to his story. Right. That's huge. I feel like when you have when you've wrote a film and it's based on your own life, what does somebody else got to say about it? You know what I'm saying? It's like, this is my life. Right. But the fact that he wanted us to come into it and add to it is huge. That's saying a lot about who he is. It's saying a lot about the kind of kindness that he leads with. I think it also speaks to his integrity and his honor, because he wanted, like I said earlier, he wanted this to be a story for everybody, right? And he said, if I ever get a chance to do it, I'm going to make sure that I sort of open it up to others in the room, if you will. So we contributed a lot, we brought a lot to it. There were all kinds of things that we saw, that we posed, that he loved, that he took, things that he didn't see, things that, things that made us greater than the sum of our parts, and made this thing that we were creating special and bigger, right? And I love it too, because I was also really heavily involved in the editing process as well, which was my first time doing that. I executive produced the final season of Discovery and produced a couple of seasons before that. But I was a fly on the wall in a lot of those meetings and a lot of that like post work. But here I had a front row seat and I was involved. And there were also things throughout the shoot that we were doing. Like, something that I have not really mentioned yet is that when Merritt picks up a photo in Dale's home, that's my real dad in that photo, who has now gone on to be with the Lord. But that's a real photo of young me and him. And so that's something that Kyle brought to me. He wanted to know if it was okay if we used a real picture, right? And so that was huge. That was a big moment for me to be able to have my dad in there. And so honestly, it was really beautiful. And I felt that contributing to this, I did it as respectfully and humbly and softly as I could, because goodness, the nature of this is just so, it's a lot. The stakes are high.
Absolutely. Well, I could talk to you for so much longer. Unfortunately, I have to wrap. But thank you so much. It was such a pleasure. I can't wait to see what else you star in, produce, potentially direct, hopefully someday.
Oh, man.
This was just a joy. So thank you so much. I'm excited for everyone to get to see this.
Oh, thank you. It's been such a joy of mine to talk to you. I'm so happy. I'm so happy we got to meet and chat. This was a good time.
Thank you so much. Okay, I'll let you go.
All right. Bye, friend.